Hey, you're listening to a Bible Brodown podcast, a member of the Trinity Commission. This is where brothers come together to sharpen one another so we can rightly divide the Word of God. I'm Matt.
And this is Billy.
And believe it or not, we're back. We're recording. It's been what, Billy?
Well, the last
4
time
weeks?
I recorded, I went back and looked, was on November 12th. And now it's December 20th, so.
Dude, that's a long time.
People kept saying recently kept saying take a vacation. I'm like, well, I have really. It's been over a month of recording.
But neither one of us would call that a vacation because you had all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't recording. Yeah, just in December. I mean, for the first week of December, I was in Florida. The second week of December, I was in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, and I managed to record one episode by myself in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just, time got away. I haven't had a chance to really write anything.
Yeah.
End of the year wrap-up stuff is just crazy. And then, of course, in the next week and a half, we're going to have traveling, family, all that jazz. So we'll escape to record just to take a break.
Yeah.
From all the togetherness.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, one of the biggest differences just in the past couple months is on October 1st, my office, the people I supervised doubled, went from 20 to 40. So that has just increased my workload. So, yeah. So this episode, we're going to be talking about the past year. We kind of do this every year, just a year in review and talk about favorite episodes, worst episodes, best episodes, most viewed episodes. What we did, what we plan to do that we didn't do. Where we're going.
What we like.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start. What did we even talk about this year? Because I was going back through the list, just trying to refresh my memory. I didn't remember half of this stuff. I mean, I remember I know the content. I don't remember actually talking about it on the podcast.
Right. Yeah, it's let's see. We had a lot of we started the year finishing up with Galatians.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're doing a lot of parables. Our mini casts were parables.
Yep.
We probably went through about a dozen of those. Talked to Jonathan about Once Saved, Always Saved. I guess that was kind of a theme this year. We talked about that more than once. Not a theme, but
yeah, parables, Galatians. We talked about security. I think one of the episodes that got a lot of attention because it was getting a lot of attention on our page is the Holy Spirit a person and the personhood, and I mean that's back now. People are talking about the Trinity on our page again, and who's what and what's who, and people calling each other heretics and unsaved and all that stuff.
I know, man. That's okay. We just time those people out for a little bit.
But yeah, big things that we did. I think 3 debate reviews. We did the big one, which kind of changed Braxton's whole channel, was his debate with Matt Dillahunty.
Wait, are you saying our review of his debate changed his channel?
No, I'm saying his debate changed his channel. But we reviewed that. You went there, right?
I did. I was there. It was up in. It was about 5 hours away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up there and I saw it. Hung out with Braxton. Did the little interview afterwards at midnight.
Yeah. Yeah. Ever since that point, the Trinity Radio show has really been focusing on apologetics and doing a lot of apologetics with atheists and atheist channels. The year before that, they were doing their whole Weima series, yeah. Mm-hmm. But this year's been all about apologetics, and you can tell that's Braxton's, his calling and his, skill set there. But yeah, we talked a lot about atonement. I think I even had Nathan Hellrung on as a guest to discuss that. Yes, it was.
Shoot.
We reviewed Mike Winger's debate with Was it Matt Dillahunty? Yes.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
one. Was his about the resurrection? Did Jesus rise from the dead?
Yeah, it was. A lot of it focused on evidence and belief, and that's actually what our episode was titled, is evidence, belief, persuasion, and things like that. We talked about that, but we also reviewed that episode. And throughout on our YouTube channel, that was the most viewed episode that we did, was that Mike Winger one. And that's because Mike Winger has a crazy amount of following. He listened to it and he shared it on his page, which...
Wait, was it more than... So one of the things that changed big time this year was our ability to, and our, I guess, desire to actually review stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, not just debates. We've done that before, but sitting down and going through videos and reviewing them, which was more in the second half of the year. But one of the big ones that I'm curious if Winger's video was bigger than was us reviewing Radical David Platt.
Yeah, he is...
Like 500-600 views, which, I mean...
Yeah, that's the second one. Second most watched one, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this year our technology changed a little bit.
Gradually increasing.
Yeah, our audio quality's better. You know, this year I started going from the generic YouTube thumbnail to actually like making real thumbnails. We moved to the ability to, you know, have us both on the screen like this and have backgrounds and even bring in videos and play those videos and review those videos. And that's been very helpful in what we've done this past year. All free, no cost.
Yeah. When not no Patreon, no donations.
Mm-hmm.
And we've said this before, but we'll say it again. We do that for a reason. God has blessed us with jobs, granted, busy jobs, but they pay what a busy job pays, and we're okay. We're comfortable. Our families are taken care of. We can afford the very low budget that we operate on, and so yeah, we still you and I have talked about providing like a list of ministries that we really love,
right?
And so if you want to donate, you just donate to them. Like, you know, we like Matt and Billy, and they like you, so here's some money, like that something like that. I don't know.
Right.
We need to.
Yeah, we do have plans to, you know, move to the green screen option.
Yeah.
You know, where it's not this format. It's kind of like you see with like Soteriology 101 and Braxton, where, you know, it'll just be us on the bottom there, and we can have videos up on top, or even our studies or pages that, you know, we're viewing or looking at. I would love to, when we get into that, go through how we start looking things up, you know, with Net Bible and the Greek and pulling up names and things like that. How
thought process.
Yeah, I think that would be good. But yeah, the Mike Winger, Matt Dillahunty episode was definitely the most viewed episode. And then David Platt, we did a response video to David Platt on, he was talking about what about those who have never heard the gospel, which obviously kind of fits our, I don't know, one of the focuses.
We have some stuff about that.
Yeah, just a few things about the universal witness. And so we just went through that. What's interesting, on YouTube you have a statistic for impressions, and that's how many times your video thumbnails were shown to viewers. Can I sort this one? But that Mike Winger, Matt Dillahunty one, that again, Mike Winger, 23,000 people viewed that thumbnail. Right, so
Dang.
yeah,
We just need more of them to click on it.
I know. Another one that we did, we had Michael Heiser on this year and talked with him. That was the third most watched episode. What's another interesting thing on YouTube is like the average view duration that somebody, you know, most people, a lot of statistics show like 10 minutes. And that's average all across the board, you know, just people's attention span or whatever. Which is why you kind of, if you want to like really capture their attention, you have to say something right away, because that's kind of the culture we're in now. But Heiser's, the average view duration is a lot longer than a lot of them, and I think that's interesting because I think Heiser's talked about this too on his own show, about how his listeners are a certain type of people, who are like really want to go in deep and things like that. So it just makes sense that people are listening longer because that's, they're kind of hungry.
Well, that, and I think that some of the topics he talks about, whether he disagrees with them or not, are provocative topics, and people are you got this what is he going to say next kind of thing. Not that he's saying crazy things, but like, well, what is he going to describe to us that we've never heard before? And so, yeah, there's that mystery to when he's talking. That hopefully we can develop. We've made it a point, and we've talked about tradition on the podcast. We made it a point of not letting tradition demand, what we believe.
Right.
And so, this was last year, 2018, but the whole like open theism thing, like studying God and time and that kind of stuff, and coming to that conclusion, never saw it coming. Right. Did not see us landing on that. So it was, I don't know. I think that's why people like him is you never know what he's gonna pull out, what fact or little trivia.
Yeah. The biggest like days back on April 25th is when Mike Winger evidently released the link, and there was a ton of people watching that day. And then back on, let's see if I can click on this correctly. Evidently it happened again in August. No, that was the David Platt one. In August was the David Platt one, and that one again a ton of people watching. So the Mike Winger one, the David Platt one, Michael Heiser, the debate with Dillahunty and Hunter, and then we also did a debate review of. You're seeing a kind of a theme here. A debate review of James White and John Cranman, right? And which they spoke on Unbelievable, and we did a review of that one. That had a lot of watches and listens, and then so did the responding to Sproul and Piper on free will.
And I like those debate reviews. Like I enjoy sitting back, and I think we can do them even more thoroughly in the future. Because sitting down and really dissecting what they're saying, sometimes it'll run really long, but it gives us a chance to really analyze their arguments. But also, I think people, at least when I watch a debate and I'm seeing these two guys go at it, and especially if they're really eloquent speakers, some of the stuff they say just kind of flies by because they're really throwing out a lot of information. So being able to backtrack, rewind, and slow down and say, okay, this is everything he said in these three sentences. That's helpful. I like them. So we could do more of those. We can find debates out there and break them down.
Right. Yeah. For the past year, if you just look at the past year and our overall this is podcast downloads. The top 10 are all old episodes, except number 10, which is where we had Nick Quint on and discussed the egalitarian position. That broke into the top 10 already.
Yeah, you see that the top one there?
Yeah.
900. Yeah, a mini cast discussing the shadow of Pharaoh. I wouldn't have thought that would have been.
Yeah, but it's just like
so random. Romans 9 part 1 makes sense.
Yeah.
Romans 1 makes sense. Romans 9 part 2. Flat Earth, our most favoritist guest up there, Dr. Pritchett.
Yeah. Yeah, he is definitely his guest appearance is, in the top downloads that we've ever had. And what's interesting, it's not where we're really talking super theology, it's where we're talking about the flat earth. And of course that makes sense. I recently watched the, what's it called?
Behind the Dome or Under the Dome?
Yeah, The Curve.
Behind the Curve? What was it called?
Maybe it is The Dome. Behind.
It's a Netflix documentary about the flat earth. Netflix flat earth. Google will tell us.
Yes. Is it Behind the Curve?
Behind the Curve.
Yeah.
Behind the Curve. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really good documentary. If the flat earth is something that you're interested in. What was
Are you interested in the flat earth?
I'm interested.
Are you coming out of the flat
No,
earth?
I'm interested in why people think the earth is flat. And this I mean, it was really a really interesting documentary because it actually discussed the psychology of again, kind of going back to the Mike Winger episode about why people believe certain things and persuasions of believing certain things, and the sociology of that. It was just that was interesting too, about how even people get this belief in their head, this so-called we'll just call it a doctrine in their head, and they get so consumed with it, and they develop a group of friends and a culture that supports them with that. Yeah, and then they start looking for evidence to support their belief, not which is kind of the opposite way, right? In science, you have like a thesis or a hypothesis, and you do an experiment and see if that experiment, basically brings out the evidence to support your hypothesis. In science, if it doesn't support it, will change their hypothesis. They'll look at the facts and change their views. And you see, when you get into this makeup of having a belief that you think is the truth, even if you do like an experiment and that experiment doesn't support your view, that you just discard it. And you actually see that in this documentary too.
Yeah, and I don't want to
spoil it.
Groups. No, spoil away. Turns out there's some people who are making a lot of money and stuff off of preaching for flat Earth, and that's their identity, and so they want to defend it, even though they probably admit it's wrong. There are probably Christians who believe things like that also benefit in the same way.
Yes,
who are also proud of their position, who don't want to admit they're wrong.
Right.
And that's both of those situations, any situation where you get like that, whether it's politics or goofy science stuff or anything, is a really good example of what the Bible talks about when it says someone has hardened themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You get in this rut, you say, no, I'm not accepting any more incoming information. This is the truth. I've found it, and I'm going to fight for it no matter what. That's hardening. Yeah, it
is. Yeah, one of the things about that documentary that was interesting is that one of the guys that's kind of like the leader of this movement, I forget his name, but there's a reporter asking him questions, and he's talking about what's the actual, what was that movie with Jim Carrey?
The Truman Show.
Yeah, and he's this Flat Earther is talking about the Truman Show, and how he starts talking about like the mayor who understands this whole scenario, and how he gets all this money and publicity and stuff like that because he's the mayor. And the reporter's like, well, aren't you the mayor in this instance? And the guy mentioned how the mayor wouldn't leave because it wouldn't leave this dome because of all this publicity and money he's getting from it. And the guy's like, well, aren't you the mayor? And the guy just like just sat there like, I suppose I am.
I think what's interesting, and I've wondered about this for a while now, is so historically cults have been physically, geographically centralized. You have a charismatic leader, generally ends up being about whether he's trying to get money or flesh from a lot of people. But he have a charismatic leader who draws these people into following him, and they end up in a place somewhere. In our generation, right now, it seems like you have cults of ideas. You have these people who come up who are able to spread their message, charismatic, whatever, able to spread their message on social media somehow, and gullible people follow that, and end up contributing a lot of money. They pay for these big conferences to happen, or they pay for they just donate stuff. And it is, I don't know, it all feels cult like, and Flat Earth is one of them that I've seen. It really does feel like that. There's some in like the UFO, like secret space programs and things like that.
Right.
Speaking of documentaries, we're way off topic, but it's Year in Review. That's what we do. There's a documentary on, I think it's Hulu, called Beyond Majestic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it is. And so these people claim that Majestic is one of the levels of government that Billy won't tell me about. And so one of the main guys in this has been, he was in this secret space program where these aliens, he's met all these kinds of beings and stuff. Dude, you watch them on YouTube and you watch the conferences that they have, out of morbid curiosity, not because I wanted to learn. The people there are really worked up about it. Very cult-like. So it's interesting. I think cults have morphed a little bit, and it's more about, ego and gratification of the leader and money, bringing it in. But it doesn't have to necessarily be geographic anymore, which I think is scary.
Right. But I mean, all of that,
things like that.
All of that to me, reminds me of the Pharisees and all the things that when you look up, we have a study on the Pharisees. Just how, why would you believe him and not the leaders and things of that nature. And, where it says that they listen to men instead of God. It's just that kind of mentality where people get so caught up in the movement that they lose sight of everything else. They close their mind. Like you said, they harden themselves to any opposing views, and anyone that opposes their view, is the enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You see that in denominations. You see that, unfortunately, all over.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We also had an episode. Was this on the response video on where do babies go when they die? We did some John Piper, John MacArthur, Todd Friel, and Todd Wagner, and that was a pretty popular episode as well. Again, response video that we had. Mm-hmm. That was pretty big. So other episodes that we did, Fruit and Works. We talked about
slavery.
Yeah, we talked about
the slavery episode.
Oh yeah. The natural man in 1 Corinthians. We had a mini cast on that one. That comes up all the time.
My gosh. And what episode is that? Because I need to just memorize the number so I can keep.
Mini cast 126.
126. I missed it. Yeah. No, that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
Natural man in 1 Corinthians 2.
Yeah. Yeah, we even had a big discussion on our Marco Polo channel with a Calvinist, and he was resting on that one and trying to understand how we come to it, and I think it came up all year with various people,
and in various different places. I mean, it's not necessarily in our group, but in the groups that we lurk, it does pop up, and I just don't. After breaking it down so many times, like. It feels really shallow for someone to claim that 1 Corinthians 2 is talking about how a Christian can't believe the gospel. That's not what it is.
Right. Another episode that I enjoyed and I thought was really good, because we've talked about once saved, always saved, and eternal security in a lot of episodes, but we took a unique position on, okay, let's just even throw out whether it's true or not. Let's talk about, should it be taught? And we spent 70 minutes on that topic and went through that. And I thought that was a really fun and interesting episode.
Yeah, episode 134. That was something that I stayed up late at night one night because of my own personal stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And I knocked that out in like a day in one evening, and I sent it to you. I was like, we need to go through this. And, so you did your revision thing, and we, like whether or not you agree with it. Should we actually teach people? Because can you ever know their heart? No, you can't. And did the apostles ever teach it in the way that a Baptist might teach it? No,
right.
They didn't. So who are you to change the message there?
Mm-hmm.
But that was you're right. I did like that one a lot.
Yeah. And then we had another special guest on, and we had the first ever Bible Brodown Throwdown episode.
That's right. Yeah, my dad hosted that.
we have to do that again.
That's right.
Because I need to win the next one.
Gotta take that up with the judge there.
Maybe we need to find a better judge.
Christian Universalism.
Mm-hmm.
Someone asked us to do a deeper dive on that, and there's actually a book that I wanted to read about it, arguing for that position. Oh, you know what? I need to start making a list right now as I go with ideas. One thing that I wanted to talk about was Protestant purgatory. I can't remember the name of the guy. I know Leighton or Braxton or Jonathan could tell us who it was.
Yeah, it's
You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
I want to read his book.
Rob Bell.
No, it wasn't Bell. Rob Bell did. He was more universalism.
No, he talked about a purgatory.
No, but that's not who I'm thinking of. There's
Really?
someone a little more respected. I hate to say that in the scholarly community. That was
A little more respect.
no offense, Rob Bell.
I don't know who you're talking about, but yeah.
But I would like to do an episode on that. See what arguments people come up with for it. And I don't want to give away my position. Well, they know where we stand. But
Yeah. I actually heard somebody that I found this year that we could talk about is Inspiring Philosophy. What's his name? I don't remember.
But that's the name of the YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's great.
And he does a lot of debates, discussions, everything.
Scientific videos.
Yeah.
All sorts of apologetics.
Yeah. If you don't watch him, I highly suggest you do. He does a lot of topical videos. He's been doing a Genesis series. Just really, really good stuff. He goes into sciences. He goes into all of that stuff. He's got some definitely some different views. Like he was on a recent one I just watched. I don't remember what it's called, unfortunately. He mentioned that he actually thinks that there might be like a second chance after death, right? And I don't know if he firmly believes it, but he's definitely open to that, and he sees he was able to list off various passages that could point to that in this discussion that he was having with someone, and it kind of threw off the atheist, because that's so much that because it came up to that whole what about those people who never hear, right? Who don't have this knowledge in order to make a decision. Obviously, we have an answer for that.
Michael Jones is his name.
Oh, really?
I believe so.
I know that name.
Michael Jones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's why I know the name. I thought you were talking about something else. Yeah, so, those are some things that we might want to...
Did you listen to his one on the Nephilim?
I have not yet. No.
That one's interesting.
I'll watch that today. I have to drive 6 hours.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'm going to give away some of it right now. You know the Sethite view, our view, angelic, right? Did you know there's a third option? That the mighty men of old are the sons of God were kings, and they were promiscuous and polygamous, and they had many sons, and so their children were the men of old, men of renown, who went out as royalty and created cities of their own and named them after themselves.
And where do we get them being called sons of God?
He answers that. Actually, what's interesting is every time he'd say something, I'd be like, yeah, but what about this? And like the next thing that he got to was answering that thing. So really good video. I still think he didn't answer all my objections, and I'm still in favor of the angelic view. But it was very interesting. So yeah, look forward to that.
Right. We did a little bit of Halloween Haunt in October.
See, I like those.
Of course you do. Matt wears a tinfoil hat.
We promised an Angels episode and a Demons episode for like 2 years. Finally got it. Learned some stuff too. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Angels, Demons, Light Side, Dark Side. We replayed Nephilim, and then the Satan and the Devil, which I thought was that was enlightening. I wasn't expecting to be surprised by that one.
Yeah, there's not a lot of like concreteness on Satan and the accuser.
No, and like just last night or the night before, I was reading in James 4:5, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Nowhere in James does he ever get into spiritual warfare or anything like that. Like he's talking about, acting on your faith and keeping your tongue in check and things like that.
He's one of those heretics who thinks you have to have like works and stuff.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Martin Luther was going to just cut him right out of there. And then you get to this one line where he says, resist the devil and he'll flee from you. And people are like, yeah, he's talking about Satan. I don't know if that's true, actually. After doing this episode and looking at the ways that word's used, it's resist the accuser in human
Right.
belief. Like he could be talking about a human accuser, someone
Right.
who is coming at. So
Like a wisdom thing, right?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And he just used that word, but yeah, no, I see that doing that study and going through all of that helped me realize, you know, we see a lot of boogeymen under a lot of places that maybe shouldn't be there.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned this in a past episode about how, we spend so much time focused on the negative and keeping our eye on the negative instead of just turning to the good and following the good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on doing what's right, and you don't have to worry about doing anything wrong because you're focused on doing what's right. Don't sit there and focus on, I have this one sin, and you're focused on that sin, and that keeps that sin in your head, which just leads into more temptation and all that stuff. Just I've noticed over the years, and that you don't have those bad thoughts when you're in the midst of doing good, and you also don't have temptations when you're in the midst of like-minded people. Like, if you're out with a group of Christians, then your mind isn't focused on doing the bad things. I can see so much why God, gives us this whole body and gifts is because, and he wants you to be in that body because, those are the people that help keep you in line. They help keep you focused on doing the right thing. When you're alone, that's when bad things happen.
Yeah, and I always like to use food as an example because it's kind of a easy way of talking about temptations and lusting after something. And I have a sweet tooth, and yeah, you're right. If I'm working hard on something else, anything else, then I'm not necessarily thinking about the cake in the fridge that I want that I'm not supposed to, that I don't need, right? But what's interesting is even if you're with a group or if you're doing something else, you can bring those things to mind. Like you can actively, using your will, decide to turn your mind to the flesh and to focus on those things. So even in those situations, it's not a guarantee. You still have to stay focused. And if something comes up that draws your attention to this cake, then you need to just forcefully, willfully turn back to what your job is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We had it wasn't a deep episode on it, but we had an episode on atonement theories, where we went through the various positions, kind of a little bit surface level, and basically what you see is that, to me, it seems like people kind of get this position and then they try to just pick verses that support their position, and it doesn't get the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of puts things in a box where we don't really necessarily agree with that. And you can see various, that's true, and all these various theories, and but many of them just don't get the complete picture, which is why we've always fallen back on. And I see this, and I think this year it's really encapsulated one of my ways I view Scripture is like almost every story that you see in the Old Testament, specifically Old Testament,
Mm-hmm.
is a teaching method for everyone. It wasn't just for them. It wasn't just, meant for, the specific people in the specific group, but it has bigger ramifications and bigger application, with us and how we see Israel as, all of Israel as a kind of a representation of humanity, and the saved of Israel as a representation of those who believe. If you have that lens and view Scripture, it opens up so much of that story that they did. For instance, we always bring it up in the Exodus and Moses. While that has bigger application, that's almost a real life parable, so to speak, or a similitude, as it's properly called. And with Joshua and with David and with the judges and the kings and all that stuff has big application. The book of Ruth, all those things. It's just an amazing thing. But, that kind of goes back to how we view the atonement. We have all these past stories and experiences with the same exact language of, atonement and purchasing, and that's the same language. And it's it's like saying, to your kids, just last week, we had this scenario, and that applies to what we're doing now. It's a perfect teaching method.
Mm-hmm. And then we had a few more reruns, a couple of reruns, and then the Didache, which was me flying solo, and I think that was the last episode that was recorded before this one.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was I really liked that. I know some people weren't a fan of the only one person wasn't a fan of the way I did it, right?
Yeah.
But I liked going into it without knowing what was in it and just reading it and responding to it off the cuff.
Right.
Because that's really what any person who's going to sit down and actually take the time to read it, that's what they're going to be doing. And so they got to hear me do it and think through it themselves. And there was a lot of stuff in there that was good, that was wise. And usually that stuff was quoting the Bible anyway.
Right.
And then there was some stuff in there that was like, what are you talking about? That's not a thing. That's, how did that so quickly come up in the church? Incorrectness, like these liturgical stuff, this what was it? Requiring them to fast for a certain amount of time on certain days, or requiring them to say a specific wording of a prayer before they do something, things like that. How to treat prophets that come in, and how to tell if they're bad, and if they stay too long, then they're bad. And
right,
just some weird stuff. I mean, I get that they had stuff going on at the time that we can't really relate to, and so they came up with some of these rules to help them figure that out. But definitely not something that needs to be applied to us.
Right.
It's not scripture.
Right. I think the same person who didn't like how you did that also said that if we read our studies, that would be great, because they probably won't go read them themselves. Is that the same person?
Maybe.
But that brings up a point. Is we have so much material that we've written on, and it was all in such a short period of time, and we've been very bad, terrible, busy, that we haven't written a lot since. And I know we didn't neglect. We just had in the past. Our mini cast was called a blog cast, where we were reading studies, but we didn't read the big ones and the in-depth ones. But I think that's something that we could easily do, and I think it would benefit people because, for one, it benefits us because it's a pre-made episode. Two, there are people who just can't. They don't have time when if they're sitting down at a computer, they're doing work. So they're not going to go just read something on the internet. But they do have that, that desire, and when they're traveling to want to fill their mind with some good stuff. So that's just a good idea for the future. Go ahead.
I think most of so you say we have a bunch left, but I don't know that we do. I mean, in 3 years, we've put out usually 2 episodes a week.
Mm-hmm.
Main one on Monday, mini cast on Thursday. So that's 52 times 3, 150, give or take, weeks, 300 episodes. And a lot of the stuff that's in the blog, we've covered in the episodes. I mean, some of it, whether it's a minicast or main episode, we've covered a lot of it.
Right.
Shadows, universal witness, God's plan for creation, things like that. I mean, so I don't know how much is actually left on the blog that we haven't hit on. So there's some one-off stuff, some smaller things.
Yeah, but that when we do an episode, we don't go as in depth that we do in our studies.
Yeah.
And I think it would be neat because on our blog, if you look under sociology, under the eternal gospel, I think that's what I call it. That what is the gospel? I have it laid out there how I think people should read it. Mm-hmm. It's not just blast on there, but I have kind of a format. If we were to write a book, Matt, this is the format, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it would be interesting just to read those and put it in a playlist and say, hey, this is the gospel series. the gospel series on the blog. I think that would be interesting for people.
The one thing I think we need to do is go back and update those. Some of them are from 2016. I mean, we not that we've changed, but we've developed our explanations and everything else, and
right.
Some of that stuff needs to be updated, add more scripture added, that
more articulated, right?
Yeah, right. So, doing the blogcast kind of thing might give us the nudge we need to go back and actually
do some
of that old stuff.
I would definitely want to talk about some. Man, I just lost it. I want to talk about things that haven't come up anymore. One of those is Universal Witness. We haven't had a lot of questions on that, but this will lead right into it. So out of the past year, the most commented videos, what do you think they would be?
The most commented videos?
Yeah, where people wrote comments on our videos.
The ones that I remember were usually Calvinists responding to it. And a couple of them in particular. I don't remember the videos though. I think it was like our response videos. They were commenting on that and saying how we were wrong.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you see that when there is I won't call them cult. What's the word? A strong sect of people who have strong opposing views. They tend to be also the same vocal ones. So yes, the most commented video was the Matt Dillahunty Braxton debate, because
that's right.
Right,
yeah, we had people,
a lot of atheists commenting. The Mike Winger one, where he debated Matt Dillahunty. Yeah.
Yep.
And you were right. Can an unbeliever even hear and accept God? And that was just a mini cast. And we were talking about, basically it was total depravity. What can an unbeliever do? Right. Can they even hear? And we went through the scriptures that show how, unbelievers hear God, listen to God, worship God, praise God, obey God, all these things that they do, and they would definitely, these people would definitely be, and even do good, right? That had a lot of comments on YouTube. Also, the egalitarian position, again, strong sect of people who have a strong view. I mean, I'm sure if we did one on alcohol, we'd probably have a lot of people talk about that. The David Platt one had a lot of comments, and so did election and favoritism.
Yep. Yeah, all those make sense. Anything that's going to be polarizing.
Yep.
People are going to want to talk about.
That's a good polarizing one. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is honestly some of the more fun episodes, so we may see more of that. So okay, we've gone through the list of episodes. What was your favorite episode, or like series? Because sometimes we bunch them up into 3 or 4.
Where's a good page for me to look at to see that? See, I don't have a list of them. Remember that question. You need to write this down, or we'll forget these things. My favorite episode that we did. Well, I did really enjoy the bottle cap challenge episode. That was this year.
I'll start tagging you in every social media challenge I find. Just get you to do all of them. My
favorite episode.
Hey, did you notice, Jonathan? Nobody actually challenged us in this YouTube content creator fitness challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're scared. Billy would be like, "All right, do 1,000 squats, go," and then he'd do it right there.
I've been doing 100. It's not really a challenge, but it's just a fitness thing that people have been doing, and doing 100 push-ups a day for 30 days.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my wife's doing it too. Right. She's doing them on her knees. I mean, maybe by day 15 she'll be able to do some on her, not on her knees, but yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. what is my favorite? I've really enjoyed the response videos, but if you take out the response videos where it was just us actually teaching something.
I mean, you can count the response videos. That's a new format that we brought out this year that we borrowed from Leighton and Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got more views and listens anyway than some of our older stuff. And yeah, they're a little easier to create for us. Not as time consuming because it doesn't require us going back and forth for dozens of hours on a paper that we've written. I mean, yeah, I like them.
I still think that my favorite episodes always tend to be about the atonement, about the gospel, and about the universal witness. I think those three things, the episodes that always relate to those, I really enjoy. Because I think taking those three things, they kind of form a foundation. And I think there's so much tradition in those that people have a lot of disconnects with how all of it fits together. Mm-hmm. And I think understanding all of those just like magnifies God and his love for all people.
Yeah.
I mean, we did one of the episodes that we did was the Universal Witness Revisited, where we basically just kind of re-summarized it and re-articulated it. Since we've been doing this now, when was our debate?
That was 4 years ago.
Was it?
November, December time, yeah. 2016.
2015.
2016.
The conversation started in 8/2015. I'm looking at the book of emails.
Yep.
That's on our... And then we started the blog at the end of 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we're almost going on 5 years now.
Yeah, we just hit 4 this year. So, favorite episodes. I was really proud of the slavery episode, just because the amount of work going into it, trying to get every term. Not my favorite, but I like that one a lot. I also like the approach that we took for the should you teach once saved, always saved. Just put the argument on the shelf. Should we even talk about let's assume it's right, that kind of thing. But I think my favorite series is probably the spiritual stuff, the angels, demons, Satan. Just because I learned some new stuff. The categories of angelic beings, just calling them all angels, it's wrong.
Right.
I mean, just learning about that and learning about what demons are according to the Bible, and then the difference between that and the first century Jewish perception, a lot based on Enoch, of how they were the disembodied spirits of Nephilim or something like that. That was super interesting. So I learned something new. It had some weird stuff in it, which I love. and yeah, it was I just liked those 3 episodes. I thought they were really good.
Yeah, when you think about those, that what you brought up with the words and angels and stuff like that, that's kind of something that we've really, I think, emphasized this year too, is how, they need to take out their translation where they put church in for everything, or where they put Satan in for everything, or where they put hell in for multiple words, and just use the word itself, like the ecclesia or Tartarus or
Gehenna or Hades, or just say call it what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And don't translate it to tell us what you think it means. I think it's a better way it helps answer some questions that you would have, and because when they do that, it just again raises more questions. Well, if that means this and that means this, that doesn't make any sense.
Because you end up conflating things,
right?
Because you think that they're talking about the same thing. And yeah, I'm gonna keep. We're not gonna ever have a full episode on them. I'm gonna keep sneaking in my pet peeve of calling everything church,
right?
Because it's stupid. Yeah, we're the called out ones. We're a kingdom. He's a king.
Right, and I wish they would do the same thing with baptism, right? Where they just put baptism in for all of these things. because I think that's one of the biggest things that comes up is people automatically assume baptism means water baptism. Right? I don't. Yeah, it's one of my issues too.
All right, I got another question for you. It's gonna be a hard one, so I'll answer first, so you can think about it. You ready?
3
years of podcast. Favorite run.
Say that you pause there for a minute.
Oh, it did blink. 3 years of the podcast. What was your favorite episode or series of the whole run in all 3 years?
Oh wow. You said you go first.
I'll answer. Yeah. So you can think about it. We've had a lot of good ones, right? I enjoy going through books, and I'm very proud of Romans, and how much work went into that, and us pulling that together. I enjoy Galatians. I always enjoy the Universal Witness stuff, but I think my favorite ones of all time are the Theology Proper from
I knew you were going to say that.
Summer of 2018. You didn't know I was going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Theology Proper, Omniscience, Omnipresence, Omnipotence, God in Time, His character. Just because that is such a foundation. If you don't understand who God is, who He says He is, you're gonna jack up the rest of it. Like that has to be your starting layer. And I just loved going through that and trying to make it as clear as possible. What does the Bible say? What does He say about Himself? I thought that was, that's just my favorite set of like 6 or 7 episodes.
Yeah, that's actually. Let's see if I can pull this up without it playing. Yeah, that was, we called it Theology Proper.
Mm-hmm. It was a June, July.
Mm-hmm. July, and we went to. I mean, it's in my playlist. I have 18 episodes. Omnipotence, the essence of God, omniscience, God's omnipresence, omnipresence in hell.
Right, the minicast. I forgot about
that. Yeah, God's M's, like His mutability, all that stuff, His omnibenevolence, His sovereignty, permission, and control that relates to that. The Trinity, the philosophical argument for the Trinity that you kind of came up with. Theology Proper, God's love in regards to discipline, His favoritism, how He's our life, our light, our refuge, and then the God in Time episodes. One of my favorite episodes, and again, it falls into those, and I've taught it multiple times since doing this episode. Last year was 2019. Yeah, it was within 2019 that I went through God's love in my home Bible study, and we spent like 8 weeks on it, just on God's love. I mean, and it's probably one of, again, because it's so foundational for who God is. You know, that's, again, if you know who He is, the more you know, and I've said this before, and you've said it too, is the more you know who He is, and His character and His attributes, and you know what His plan is for us and why He created us and all these things. It's, you know, it's just, you know, it shows His holiness and His love and His greatness, and why He is so worthy to be honored and worshipped.
Yeah. And when you go to tell other people about Him, how are you supposed to image God and be like Him if you don't know what He's like?
Yep. and that's
Romans 12:1-2.
Right.
You be transformed by the renewal of your mind, so you can know His good and perfect. You have to make yourself a sacrifice and follow Him, follow the Spirit, and then you can know who He is, and then you can know what His will is. And like, yeah. The more you know, exactly. I mean, imaging Him, you know, the 2 greatest commandments that fulfill the law, right? Fulfill the law. This came up recently. You know, to love Him, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how do you love Him and love your neighbor if you don't know what His love is? You know, how do you image His love back to Him and to others without knowing the extent of His love? Yep. Okay. What time are we at? I got another question for you.
About 53 minutes.
Perfect. 2020. What is a topic or two that you want to definitely cover? I know we've talked about a few here and there, but are there any major series? James is one of them.
Yeah, I was already. I want to go through James, and I wouldn't mind going through another book too, because I think it's good. for us, I mean, I think Braxton mentioned this a long time ago, how he wanted to have an archive of his teachings, for his kids to have and his grandkids to have and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what an amazing thing when our kids are actually old enough to get into really caring about this stuff.
Yeah. They do ask some insightful questions.
Yeah, absolutely. But
like,
they're not.
Games?
The 10-year-old isn't like, oh, I want to listen to your series on Romans that took you 3/4 of a year to go through, right?
Someday.
Right. James. I don't. It's got to be like 2 years that we've mentioned prayer.
I'm telling you, and you know what? That's a big one because like I've had those conversations recently. What should we actually be praying? Because you think about just sitting in a small group or something that you listen. And if you're not all ADD and thinking about other stuff, you listen to what someone's praying, and you're like, sometimes I find myself going, "Well, God's already doing that." I mean, yeah, God knows that. Like, right. Like, hey, what should I be praying? That I think that will be hopefully very thought provoking for people when we get to it someday in the next 5 or 7 years.
Right. Other episodes that I really, or things that if after James, I wouldn't mind doing what was it? Ephesians.
Okay. That's good. We've spent a lot of time in Ephesians before, especially 1 and 2 and a little 4. Yeah. So that could be good. I'm looking forward to more response videos, and response videos / debate reviews. I just enjoy doing that format. I think it's good.
I have so back when I was writing a lot when I had more time. I mean, let me give them an example of. So when I go to my Bible lessons folder, I have 830 files in this folder. So those are all Word documents and studies that I've either completed or finished.
And if you've ever seen Billy's one of his studies, there's at least 8,000 words in each one of those.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Granted, a lot of it's copy paste from the Bible, but still.
This is terrible. Are these? Okay, these aren't all. I have a working on folder. There's 250 files.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah. Just in my ready for posting that I could send Matt and have him go over, I have 34 files.
What are the topics?
Right, waiting for review, I have 24. Adoption, eternal life in the Old Testament, Gentiles in the Old Testament, humility and calling upon the Lord, looking at the whole phrase, Israel will be saved.
Yeah.
Looking at the passages that talk about love as a choice. Statements on salvation. That's one that I started working on a long time ago, and it's basically all the statements that speak of basically salvation and what you're supposed to do, right? Believe and be saved, or believe and be baptized and be saved, or walk in the light as he is in the light, and the blood of his son Jesus will cleanse you from. Those are all salvation passages, right? And just looking at all of them, and I mean, that what's the core? What's the same theme of all of these? Trusting God.
Yeah, drawing that thread through. One thing, listeners, that you may not know about Billy is some of these studies that he's putting together are sometimes just compilations of verses that fit his particular category, like salvation. And so if you ever talk to him on Facebook, and you ask him a question and he gives you 800 verses as an answer, he's not doing that off the top of his head, although he probably could. A lot of times he'll pull up one of these and he's like, here's a good chunk of verses, and he'll copy paste those into the thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is brilliant because who can remember all of that? But yeah, no, that's one way he uses all these documents.
Testing your faith in the Lord, all the verses that talk about how he tests your faith, you know, like with Israel, you know, I'm going out there to, you know, test your faith, to see if you're going to be faithful, right? That's
Which is interesting because you think about Romans 12, he gives each person a portion of faith, but then he's going to test that faith. So like, it's almost, how would you say that? It's almost like he's giving you this really fine tool to use, and he wants to see how you're going to wield it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to actually use it the right way?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
just,
he's freed you. He's told you what you should do, and now he's going to test to see if you're going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The principle of faith on how to please God. What does that mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Some
just
good ones. Shoot, there's some episodes in there. Cool.
Mm-hmm. You know, I have preparations for when we were going to interview Dr. De Silva.
Oh, I'm so bummed. Yeah. Not that I think he listens to this, but you know, on the off chance he does, I still want to have Dr. De Silva on. It's just, I can't believe it. One semester's over already. So I mean, we're halfway to being in the summer again.
Right.
Catch up next summer. His schedule's busy. He's working at school. Same reason it's hard to get Jonathan or Braxton on, or Leighton. They're teaching. They got stuff to do, especially during the school year. So when we get to the summer, things kind of wind down a little bit, and then we can catch some of these professors that we missed, and that was just scheduling conflict last year. Any other guests you want to have on?
Oh, well, we have to. We this year, did we have any of the Trinity Commission on?
Jonathan. We've talked about asking Steve Gregg to come.
What do we have on for Jonathan?
One saved, always saved.
Was that this year?
Yeah, first third of the year.
I thought that was the last end of the year in 2018. Pretty sure it was.
Check. How much are we putting on it? We had a bet. Gambling. That's an episode.
I think
11 months ago, Eternal Security with Jonathan Pritchett. Yeah, 12/24/18. That was.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Yep.
Am I out?
I mean, you interviewed Braxton. I think that's the only one that we had.
Oh, we had another one, and then
Oh yeah,
it went up in flames.
and I still even have it on my desktop. I still have all of my notes from that episode.
Yeah, so we recorded an episode with Braxton. It was near-death experiences. Kind of went into OBEs as well, out-of-body experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently asked him if he wanted to re-record that. I hadn't heard back yet. I'm sure he would. He just ignores us. He doesn't. No, but I want to combine the two. I want to make sure that we talk about both because out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences are both very similar. But what's interesting is people are seeking out the out-of-body experiences with these ayahuasca trips and things like that. And what are they, spiritually speaking? Can you prove that something's actually happening? Things like that. And starting with the near-death experiences and what cases Braxton has looked at, and then moving into the out-of-body experiences, I think is the right way to go because the cases that he's looked at are very, very fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, man.
All right.
3 years down.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the fourth.
And seeing what comes.
Yeah, hopefully our schedules are calmed down a little.
Right.
Crazy lately.
Yeah. I think our transition, we changed agencies, and that's been a big thing, and that's going to be kind of all the hard stuff is, I think, over now. Yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing that I'm looking forward to, and I think maybe this year, especially if our schedules do stay crazy, is you might see more just one-offs of Billy or me maybe reading something, like with the Didache. Because I want to go through more of the Church Fathers. Not like an entire thing that one person wrote, but maybe some of the more important writings that they had, and do
Oh.
what I did with that.
Enoch.
And
I want to do the Enoch this year.
Woo!
Not the whole thing. That would take forever.
That'd take forever. No, yeah, we could summarize it. Yeah, for sure. Kind of like we do with Acts.
Mm-hmm.
Just go through, several chapters in one episode and summarize it. That'd be interesting. But yeah, and then Billy may have, like, if one of us can sit down and interview someone and the other one can't, like he did with Braxton and the Sacred Cows, then yeah, that may happen. But obviously, we want to have the full the bros on the Brodown, but it doesn't always work out these days.
Right.
So, God willing. But yeah, anything else?
No, don't think so. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being supportive. We're continuing to grow slowly. We're not trying to get fame and fortune or anything like that. We're not trying. I mean, we don't pay money for advertisement. Everything that we do is just word of mouth and people sharing and stuff like that. And we've appreciated the support that we have. And, the people that have followed us have been very loyal and very supportive. And we'd hardly ever get questions on the Universal Witness. Like, everyone seems, I think we've taught it so well and have so much material on it. I think we answer the questions. We hardly ever get questions on it any longer. People, it's just like, at least around our circles that we see, it's kind of like a default position that people hold now.
Although I think we do have enough new people that at some point this year we will do our year.
Yeah.
What is the gospel? What is the Universal Witness? Review, recap, rehash, whatever you want to call it. Because it's worth doing, and also we keep having new people come in and addressing who has heard and what God expects of them is like what we built this podcast on, what we built this whole ministry on. So,
right.
Worth redoing. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, ditto Billy's thanks. Appreciate everybody listening and being in the group, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. God bless.
God bless.